but it's amazing to me how many people I encounter who maybe they're scared of the answer that they'll find, so they don't ask the question, or they don't, get the help, or they don't do the thing. And I think that we all have that tendency there. Sometimes when I say, what's the cause of me avoiding this? It is because I'm scared of the answer that I'm going to hear. But even being aware of that then allows me to be able to, approach it with a gentler.
Welcome to Gratitude Geek, the relationship marketing podcast, helping DIY marketers find your micro influencer magic so you attract raving fans and repeat buyers. I'm your host, Kandas Rodarte, and this week I'm joined by copywriter Emma Schermer Tamir. Emma transforms her insatiable curiosity into conversion spiking copy. As co-founder of Marketing by Emma, she's helped over 1,200 businesses from around the world boost their sales and build their brands through authentic, compelling copy. Her aim? Excite your dream clients and churn your websites, Amazon listings, and more into effective selling machines. Welcome, Emma.
Thank you, Kandas. I'm excited to speak with you today.
It's going to be fun. So tell us your story. How did you get to where you are today?
Sure. Yeah. I was a bit of a wanderer in my early years. I was not one of those people that was a born entrepreneur or that, had a clear path of where I wanted to go. I tried a lot of different things. I lived in a lot of different places. And then I met my husband. And on our second date, he said, I don't know what the future of our relationship holds, but I see how miserable you are at your job. And I know a lot of people, and I would just love to be able to send your resume out and, help you sort of build something. And I was like, absolutely not. That's so embarrassing. No way. Thank you, but no, thank you. At the time, I was doing marketing for a software company. So I'd already, by that stage, kind of begun to get into the marketing space and fallen more specifically into the copywriting and content writing world. So my relationship progressed with my husband, and eventually he grew tired of waiting for permission. And I was away doing sales and marketing for another company at a conference. And I came home and he was like, here's a list of people that want to hear from you on Monday. And that was the beginning of our company in 2016. And since then, when we first started Marketing by Emma, we really saw it as something that was going to be maybe like a side thing that would be, we'd be able to travel with it and have that freedom. But pretty quickly, word started to spread about our work, and we started getting flooded with opportunities, which was amazing. But we kind of hit this point where it was like, either we can stay small and just take on the projects that I want to do, or we can try to see about growing this and hiring people. And so that's how we sort of began to try to figure out what it takes to grow a business and a team and navigate all of the twists and turns that business and life and the world throws your way.
How long has this been going on?
We are getting ready to enter our 7th year. So we've been around long enough that I feel like we've weathered a lot of things, and yet almost every day I encounter things that I have no idea how to fix or what to do about.
So when I met my husband, he was a furniture maker, and he was making, he had a contract with a chain of furniture, not furniture stores. It was cargo furniture. So I guess they were furniture stores, but it was a very specific type of furniture. And he had designed their armoire and their Jefferson bed and a couple of other pieces that his shop exclusively made for cargo. When I met him, I was like, we could do more than this. There's so much more that you can be doing. And I think I kind of did the same thing to him that your husband did to you.
Totally. I love that. I think so often we don't hear those kinds of stories, but having a cheerleader that can see your potential when you can't, for me, like that has really shifted the path that my life has taken for the better. And I'm very grateful to have a partner that sees those things in me, even when I can't.
Well, he positioned himself to be your partner from the very beginning.
Yeah.
And your business partners today. My husband and I have been married for 25 years in April. And
Amazing.
we are
Congratulations.
still business partners. We haven't killed each other and we haven't dissolved our company. So something is going right.
Those all sound like huge accomplishments. People always tell me, "Oh, wow, that's so cool that you work with your husband." And I say, "Yes, it is. I can't imagine doing this with anyone else." And yet, I don't know that it's the right choice for every couple because it will test you in all of the ways.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, in order to make it work, you need to have a clear delineation of what your job is and what his job is.
Yes.
And don't ever cross over. My husband and I went around at the very beginning, like 20 something years ago. We went around with this threefold brochure. I mean, this is over 20 years ago. So there's a threefold brochure, and I designed it and I gave it to him, and he completely changed it and gave it back to me. And I changed it back to the way I had originally designed it with a few tweaks and said, nobody is going to read it the way that you designed it. Because he had these long paragraphs of, this long flowery story. And I'm like, people don't want to read your story. They just want bullet points. And so at that point, we pretty much decided that I would handle marketing and he would handle operations and manufacturing. And we would just separate those two pieces. And I would just go forward knowing what I was going to do.
It was a smart choice. We had a similar, like we used to, he'd take a call and then he'd come to me and we'd like figure out how to like send an email. And first of all, it was so incredibly wasteful time wise, but also when our roles overlapped like that, it just created so many opportunities for friction, and hiring somebody in to fill that role just instantly shifted the dynamic and made things so much better and allowed us to be able to meet for high level things and talk, strategy and figure out how to handle certain types of problems. And we were able to do that so much better because we weren't encroaching on each other in a day-to-day kind of way.
So offer your best advice for someone who's meets their dream dude and he's like, I want to help you. And you're like, what would you tell them?
That's a good question. Let me think on that for a moment.
You didn't know this conversation was going to go in this direction, did you?
I did not. I would say I don't regret waiting to let him get involved with that, because I do think that it's very easy when you just meet someone to be besotted with them, and especially things if you're going to go into business together, not just have someone as your cheerleader or coach or, pushing you. Those are big choices that you want to make sure that you're compatible in all of the ways that would make you good business partners. But as far as someone that's maybe there to push you, I think it's a wonderful opportunity. I have the benefit of also having some friends that fill those types of roles. It doesn't have to be in a romantic sense. It could be a mentor. I was actually at a women's workshop on Friday last week, and they were talking about the list of the different people that you need in your life. And so you need a cheerleader, someone that will celebrate you, someone that will mentor you, someone that will listen, someone that will sponsor you. So even when you're not in the room, they'll sort of be singing your praises and putting you forward for opportunities. And there was a last one that is now escaping my mind, but in that particular respect, you have to feel, I think, the emotional safety to allow someone to see you in that way, because he was essentially pushing me to confront some of the things in myself that I felt the most insecure about. And so you need to make sure that it's a dynamic and a relationship that has a lot of trust in it, and that they have your best interest in mind. And I think if you have those two things, then it can be really amazing. It's not, I don't always receive that in the most, gracious or graceful way. So I think just the way that I am, a lot of times my first response will be to push back. And then when I have time to process it and think about it, then I'll be like, okay, yeah, I think there's some points to that. So yeah, I don't know if that fully answered your question on like one piece of advice that I would give.
You can't just give one piece. So is your business at home, or do you have an office?
We had an office, but now we went fully remote when COVID started, and we've just been remote ever since. So my husband and I both work from home, and then we have a team that all works from their homes or libraries or, wherever they feel like working on a given day.
So talk about your work day. How do you know when work has started and work has ended?
One of the most challenging things for me over the last year. So we were living in Missouri until last spring, and we came out to Las Vegas to do a trial run and see if this was somewhere we wanted to move. And then we officially moved here in May of last year. And so we've been on Pacific time since then, and most of my team is in Central time. And so I've now developed this really bad habit where when I wake up, I instantly check my phone to see if there are any fires that need putting out, because my team has already been at work for at least 2, if not more hours. So that, unfortunately, is something that I have not done a good job yet at being able to draw healthy boundaries. And so my mornings are a little bit murkier than I would like to be. So typically I check my phone, make sure that there are no emergencies that need handling. If there are, respond to any of those. Then I take care of my dog, feed him, take him out. And then there is one core component that I sort of 95% of the time make sure that I do, which is I have to start my day reading. I find that it really helps me center myself and make me feel like I'm greeting the day rather than the day is taking over me. I also just feel like it's a way of fertilizing my mind and processing different sort of things that I'm trying to figure out, even if it's sort of happening in the background. And I read all different things. So sometimes I'm reading business books, sometimes I'm reading personal development books, sometimes I'm reading fiction. I feel like all of it is valuable in serving all of those different layers. And so I'll read for half an hour. If it's something that seems particularly important, maybe expand that to an hour or so. And then I typically try to, after that, go sit at the computer and start my day. If I'm feeling extra into my morning routine, I'll also add journaling, and specifically morning pages. I don't know if you're familiar with that practice, but that's something that I really like to have in my mornings when I do have a little bit more time as well. So morning pages, if you don't know what those are, is the practice of typically you would do it right upon waking. That's a little bit challenging for me. So I'll either do it before or after I read, and you sit down and you write for 3 pages in your journal, and there's no particular structure for it. But the idea is you keep the pen moving for 3 pages. So even if you feel like you have nothing to say or nothing to write, you write, I don't know what to write right now. And you fill up 3 pages. And it's incredible because in general, I just think that journaling is a really valuable skill, but so often I end up, figuring out a solution to something that I've just been stuck on, or feeling like I have a little bit more peace with a challenge that I'm working through, or I just feel more energized and clear-headed to start the day. So it can serve a lot of different roles depending upon what's going on. I'd like to do that every day, but just realistically, I feel like the longer you make your morning routine, the more it encroaches on your day, and then your day is more morning routine than anything else.
I have a start time. 10 o'clock is when I start.
Yeah.
So I know that I have to stop my morning routine so that I have time to shower and get ready to go. So, I start work at 10 and I end work at 5, and, and then I have, lots of different things that happen in between. But I don't do anything work related before 10 a.m. unless it's Thursday morning for my networking group, which I can't believe I actually signed up for a 7 o'clock in the morning networking group. What was I thinking? What was I thinking? So what about, how do you wrap up the day, and how do you, okay, honey, this is that we're not business partners anymore. Now we're married. Now we're a married couple. How do you do that?
Yeah, we are not perfect with that. So I would say most of the time we really try to be done by 5. But like for me, if I hit 4 o'clock and I feel like I've sort of maxed out my limit and I feel good about what I've accomplished, and I'm not going to make myself just stare at the computer for an hour and do some piddly things. I'll just wrap up. And then there are, on the other hand, days where I'm just really in the zone and I'm not going to take myself out of the zone just because it's 5 o'clock. I'd rather just kind of keep that momentum going and wrap up at 6 or 7. But most days I try to be closing the computer around 5 o'clock. And my husband's name is Erez, and he tries to do the same. And then we'll normally just take a little bit of time for ourselves and independently to do whatever we need to kind of down regulate from the day. And then we really make an effort to eat dinner together every night. And since we moved to Las Vegas, we also have a lot more that we're doing in the evenings. And so it was actually one of the reasons that we wanted to move here, because already, we work together, we work from home. And then with COVID, we were just sitting around and there was no separation. And so it was us sitting on the couch after work, trying not to talk about work, but that was the only thing going on in our lives. So it felt like it was the only thing that we had to talk about. So it was just sitting there on our shoulders. And so we really wanted to move in large part to be able to enjoy our lives as individuals and as a couple, and be able to live more full lives beyond just being business owners and partners. And so on Sunday, we went to the ballet together, and we go to musicals and concerts and
your husband went to the ballet with you?
He would go to any live performance of almost anything with me. I'm far more selective with things than he is.
That is so funny. So we like theater, but he doesn't get into classical music. So as much as I would love to go to, the orchestra every once in a while, I can't take him with me because he's just bored out of his mind. And I don't think I'd ever be able to drag him to the ballet.
See, I'm more like your husband in that respect. Like classical music, I'm not interested in. This was actually it was 3 smaller pieces, and the headline piece was set to Etta James music. And so it was very contemporary, and it was beautiful. Fun. And yeah, it was really good.
That woman does not get enough credit for being the pioneer that she was.
Oh, she was just incredible.
Amazing. Okay, so we've talked about journaling and just writing whatever you have. And we've talked about, how it's this, you never quite can wind down this life, this I'm at work, I'm not at work anymore life. So that's really about perfectionism and releasing perfectionism. So we'll talk about that.
Yeah, I feel like I feel like everybody has that thing that they just know that they're going to be working on their whole lives. And I feel like that is it for me. Like it just impacts so many parts of my life. And I think when you're younger, or at least in the environment that I grew up in, I was a high achieving student. And so I think I really started to associate my performance in life with my value as a person. And I've tried to get to what the origins of that are, because, I don't know if it's something that even started before that, if it's my nature. I think that it's something that a lot of other people in my family also struggle with. So maybe some of that was also just passed down as part of our family story. But regardless of where it originated from, I just feel like almost any time I'm really struggling with something, eventually I realize that it's the perfectionism that's at play. And it's so pernicious because it shows up in so many different ways. So I think our traditional interpretation of what perfectionism is quite limited, and it can show up in so many different ways. Like when I learned years ago that perfectionism was actually one of the biggest causes of procrastination. I was like, what? Or self-sabotage,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
you don't want to fail at something. And so we develop these ways of being able to almost not commit all of the way. So then we give ourselves an excuse that if we fail at it, it wasn't because we were giving our all, and then it's a reflection on our, worth as a person.
The only person who knows that the thing that you produced isn't perfect is you.
Yeah.
Nobody else knows it's not perfect, and nobody cares.
Yeah.
There are unfinished symphonies that sound perfectly finished to me. So what do you do about it? How do you overcome that perfectionism?
In a lot of different ways. I think the first thing is just to be aware of it and to kind of recognize when it's getting in the way of something. But I think one of the tools that has been most helpful to me is to make outward commitments, because I found that I'm much more likely to find excuses to not uphold a commitment that I make with myself versus one that I make to somebody else. Like if I say I'm going to get something to you by a certain day, even if I'm sick, I'm going to do everything in my power to make sure that you get that thing. But if I tell myself I'm going to have this thing finished by that day and then I'm sick, it's going to be much easier for me to sort of say, oh, it's okay. Like that's not that important. You need to, focus on this other thing or rest. And so
okay, can I just stop you there for a second? If you are sick, you need to take care of yourself first.
Oh, totally.
Because if you're sick, you can't do anything else. Self-care should always come first.
Yes, I 100%. But there's sick and then there's sick. If you have a cold and a little bit of a headache, and you're still capable of getting that thing done because you committed to getting that thing done, I think that's very reasonable to make sure that. And if you're not procrastinating, then it shouldn't be waiting till the last moment to be done anyway. So, you kind of prevent that situation from even ever being a situation, if you can help it. So that's one of the things that I'll use as a tool. Like, let's say that I'm really dragging my feet on something, then I'll maybe reach out to someone and commit to a project that terrifies me. And then I kind of give myself no choice but to have to do it.
That is so important. Taking those scary jobs is important because you're perfectly capable of doing the work. The only thing holding you back from getting it done is yourself. So that's an excellent tip. That's an excellent tip. Okay, so you're the first copywriter that I've had a chance to talk to since ChatGPT became this thing that took the world by storm. So talk to me about ChatGPT.
Yeah, I knew that this day was coming, that it would that AI would become more mainstream. Sort of feels like it was out of the blue, where it was just all of a sudden everywhere you looked, every article was about AI and in one way, shape, or form. And people that knew nothing about it were like, wow, this, I don't think that any of us can deny that eventually this will have huge impact on every facet of our lives. What's interesting now is I think there are two main categories that I kind of am engaging with a lot and contemplating. And so the first is, how can we use these tools to do our jobs better? I think some people have the assumption that this can just totally replace the need for creative at all. And
that's a load of baloney.
Yeah, that's just not the case. It's great with ideation. It's great with sort of if you're stuck on how to say something. It's great for getting different versions of how to write something. There's a million different really interesting applications, but having it just write something and be done is not one of them. So I think it really does actually allow for the people that, to kind of cut out the parts of the job that can be quite tedious and allow more space for the creativity and finding ways to be able to actually do even better work, because you're not so stuck in some of those slower spots, and you have a set of tools that you can turn to get out of whatever stuck spot you might be in. So there's that side. I do also have a strong awareness of ethical and moral quandaries that I want to be really cognizant of and aware of. And those are conversations that we're constantly having with our team of, not just taking facts as facts, because I think that's where we're seeing one of the real dangerous sides of some of these tools is the conviction and confidence that they have to deliver incorrect information. And so, making sure that you're really cross-referencing any information or doing additional research, and that we're also not helping to propagate any other sort of, pieces of information or ways of saying things that could be problematic on a cultural or societal or larger level.
Well, and just because it's been fed information, these AI engines don't necessarily have the correct information. I actually asked it, what do you know about Kandas Rodarte? And that name, spelled the way I spell it, there can't be another one in the world, right? So it said that I was the CEO of a tech company in Mississippi or Missouri. And I was like, so I looked up that company, and the woman who runs that company doesn't even have a name similar to mine, but it gave my name and her biography. So yeah.
So strange. Yeah, I saw one article, I think it was on NPR, and it asked, the writer had asked it to describe some made up term that sounded kind of scientific. And it came back with this really compelling scientific answer that was totally just fabricated baloney. Like it was nothing. It was not a real thing. But reading that, you would think that it was.
Well, the thing is, you have to ask it the question the right way.
Yeah.
Right. And it doesn't have morals. So it just is coming up with, it also doesn't know, unless you tell it specifically, it doesn't know if it's writing a piece of fiction or nonfiction. Yeah. So I asked it to tell me a story about a llama who lived in, a llama who got lost in the woods. I did write a story about a llama who gets lost in the woods, and it wrote a story about a llama who got lost in the woods, and it did a really cute job. But then again, I asked it about me, and I'm like, that's not me. The thing the one thing that is just magical is there's this prompt that you can give it called proofread. And so I asked it to proofread a paragraph that my mom wrote about her life. She was born in Korea. She was born in China. She's Korean. It was about her life right before the Korean War started. And it's a little hard to read because she wrote and spoke broken English. English was her second language. So for most people who didn't listen to her talk every day, it would be a really difficult piece to kind of comprehend. So I just said proofread, and it corrected the grammar and the spelling and put the sentences together correctly. And it churned a piece of, a family history that was difficult to read into a beautiful, paragraph or two about a horrible time in my mom's life when she was a child. Right. So there are some benefits, and then there's some scary things like, okay, now that I know that it doesn't know who I am, or it thinks that I'm somebody I'm not, what else is it shitting out? What else is it spitting out that isn't correct, that we need to, so the thing is, you're absolutely right. You have to fact check these AI engines. You can't take what they say as truth, because they're not truth. Okay. So talk to me about your business. We've gone all around a whole bunch of stuff. We talked about all sorts of things, but not what you do. So you're a copywriter, but what does that mean?
Yeah, so we create marketing writing for people that sell products online, and where we have our biggest specialty and what I do the most speaking on and everything is helping people that are trying to sell products on Amazon. So
That's a great niche.
Yes, it's a really fascinating one. In general, Amazon is it's really its own ecosystem. So for anything that a business might need, there are people that specialize specifically from the Amazon perspective, because it really is a very unique marketplace that has a lot of its own rules and ways of doing things that are not like anywhere else. And so, yeah, that we actually very quickly fell into that, and recognized that we could just be a general copywriting firm, but that there are so many of those, it would be really difficult to differentiate ourselves and to build a name. And so we decided pretty much right from the get-go to lean into this and to do thought leadership around it. And so that's been sort of the journey in that path. So we do other things as well. Like if people have their own websites or looking to sell on Walmart or things like that, we can help with that too. But where my kind of interests go is more than just the putting words to, paper, but really digging in and figuring out who a brand is and what makes them special, and then how we can communicate that in a way that's going to make people not only excited to buy, but want to tell their friends about it. Because, what's different about Amazon is you're sitting there right next to all of your competitors. It's not like your own website where you control everything else that somebody's looking at. Your competitors are right there. They can even advertise on your product page. So it is so easy for a customer to go somewhere else if you're not answering the questions that they have, giving them the information they need, or making them sold on your product. And so you have to have a really strong understanding of how you fit into the competitive landscape if you want to be successful on Amazon.
Well, also on Amazon, you could have the same product, the exact same product being sold by 3 or 4 different sellers. So how do you differentiate?
That's where things like, branding and positioning and figuring out how to creatively communicate about the product comes into play. Because, it might be that you're getting your, thermos manufactured at the exact same factory as 3 or 4 or 10 other people selling thermoses on, well, I guess thermos is the brand name. What do you even call tumbler?
Tumblers, yeah.
Insulated tumbler. So it might truly be the same product, just with your brand name on it versus another. So then that's where we need to get curious and creative, and we might look at things from a few different angles. So one is to look at how the competitors are presenting themselves and their products, and seeing if there are gaps there. So, just because all products are the same, how you talk about those products could differ pretty substantially. So like another example might be like a dog treat. And so a lot of people might talk about how healthy the dog treat is, and that's really the whole focus of the product page. And so if that's the only thing that all these people are talking about, are there gaps there of being able to approach this information that's the same information from a totally different way? So in that case, maybe I would realize this is a long-lasting treat, that's something that I can give my dog and he's going to chew on for an hour. So
Give me one of those.
I don't know what kind of dog you have, but bully sticks are magical.
I have cats. We had a dog. Our dog passed away a few years ago, but man, if I could have found something that would occupy that dog for long enough for me to get a podcast interview done.
Right. So, I mean, fortunately, mine's curled up right there on the couch and he's, placid. But come evening time, as soon as I want to sit down and eat dinner or like just take a few moments for myself, is the time when he decides he needs attention. And like, it doesn't matter what I want to do. Like, he will make sure that he demands it until I give it to him.
Pets know what time you have to go to the bathroom and they know what time you have to eat.
Yes. I feel like now he knows that I'm talking about him.
And they want to be in your face at all times. It's so creepy when you open the shower curtain and there's a cat or a dog just right there staring at you.
Truly.
So okay, so let's go back to this differentiating, because it's so important. And I mean, this is product based, and you might not, for the listener who's trying to figure out how to write descriptions for their products, is there like a magic formula? What are the things that you absolutely have to include?
It depends on what you're selling. So some of that's going to be, like, for example, if we go back to a tumbler, people want to know what material that is. They want to know how long it's going to keep something cold or hot. So there are some basic details that are just, they're not necessarily going to be the thing that sells it, how many ounces it holds. Those are just important facts that everybody has a set of criteria that they're bringing when they're buying something. It might be, the size of the battery or the capacity of the tumbler or whatever, but they're not necessarily the thing that's going to sell it, but they're the thing that is going to help someone say, yes, I'm in the right spot, I'm interested in learning more, or no, I need to go somewhere else because this doesn't meet my basic needs. So you need to know what those are. And some of that will probably just be the basic details of your product. And some of that, maybe you need to do some additional research, especially if you're selling in a category that you aren't as familiar with. Really good tools for that. Even if you're not selling your own product, you can still look at competitor reviews. So that will give you a lot of insight into what people are like and dislike and are interested in with a product. You can also look at the question. If we're talking specifically about Amazon, there is a question and answer section. And so you can look there and see what kinds of questions are people asking. And you can even like upvote those. And so that's showing what people are interested in and what you may want to consider adding into the main part of your listing so that you're addressing it right out of the gate.
So for someone who's selling a product on their own website and they have no idea what to say about this widget that they are making or they're reselling, you just gave an excellent piece of advice. Go find something just like it on Amazon and look and see what questions are being asked in the listing. Yeah, that's brilliant. Okay, we're done. You've just given everything we need. Thanks for being here. I appreciate it. Well, okay, let's talk about the power of storytelling then. So do you remember, I mean, have you ever seen an episode of Seinfeld when Elaine Bennis worked for that catalog? You know what I'm talking about?
I wish I've seen a few of the early seasons of Seinfeld, but I don't have an encyclopedic knowledge of the Seinfeld universe.
So Elaine, the female, of the trio or the quad group of people, she worked for a catalog company, and they were famous for making these outlandish descriptions of their products. Like this hat will make you feel like you're riding on the back of a saddleless horse with the wind blowing in your hair. And so how do you feel about that kind of brand storytelling, or is it just so outlandish? I mean, talk about brand storytelling in a product listing.
Yeah, I think there can be a place for that. It all goes back to who you are and who your customers are. And you really have to know those two things in order to be able to make a bold, creative choice like that. So like one company that immediately comes to mind, are you familiar with Dr. Squatch?
Oh, I think so.
They've been a really successful direct consumer brand in the last few years, and they make men's body care.
Okay. Yes. I've heard of them.
And it's really funny. It's essentially, they kind of poke fun at like Axe and like those kinds of things, where it's like, it has a real sense of humor about itself and about the category that it's selling in. And so it's directed at a very specific kind of person. And they're really, really clear on who their customers are, which allows them to be able to make those kinds of jokes and have them land, and then as a result be able to grow a really successful business from that. But if you don't have clarity around those things, then first of all, you might offend someone with some of these jokes, if
well, then you're not my target client.
Right. But like, if you are trying to sell to a person that might be offended by this, then you don't want to make enemies of your customers. So you need to understand who your customer is and who you're going for. Another example that I like to give a lot in presentations, because I think it's really strong, is there's a coffee company called Black Rifle Coffee Company. And they are a veteran-owned coffee company, and they are very forward with that as a core piece of who they are. And they don't just talk about veterans, they really talk about, being very strong supporters of the military and law enforcement and things that are divisive issues in this country. It's not that every single person feels strongly about supporting those organizations. And so they understand their coffee is not going to be for everyone. They're not trying to make their coffee for everyone. They're trying to really forge a strong relationship with the people that are going to be excited by that and would love the opportunity to be able to, buy a coffee that's also in line with their core values as a human, something that they want to wear merch for and all of those things. And so it starts before you ever put the words to paper. And that's where you should really be spending a lot of time when you're thinking about how to position your product, how to communicate about your product, even the kind of imagery that you're going to use. Is what do you stand for? Who is your business? And who is your customer? An exercise that I really love for figuring out who your business is to actually, like, a lot of people have probably heard the term customer avatar, which is to build out a profile of who your target customer is. So it's not just women between the ages of 20 and 25 and 40, but, Emma, who's 34 and, X, Y, and Z. It allows you to speak more directly to that person that you're really trying to communicate to. You can do the same thing with your business. So you can personify your business and say, okay, if my business was a human being, what kind of clothes would it wear? What would be its favorite shows? What influencers does it follow? What's its favorite restaurant? What kind of humor does it have? And it's really helpful to do that, because when you have that specificity, like if you say my business is a millennial man who like has a scruffy beard and flannels and takes his coffee very seriously, and it starts to build out all of these other things that are more than just the words that I'm saying.
Well, and the important thing there is that your business is not you. I mean, yes, right, you're a huge part of your business, but if your business, if I'm Kandas and my business is Greta, let's just call it Greta. Greta and I are not the same person. And separating the two is fantastic. I love this idea.
Yeah.
I love this idea because it's like Beyonce when she becomes Sasha Fierce, right?
Yeah.
When she's on stage, she's Sasha Fierce. And when she's off stage, she's the mom of, and a wife and a sister and, a completely different person. But on stage, she's Sasha Fierce. You can do that with your business too. I love this idea, Emma. Thank you for sharing it.
Yeah, I'm glad.
I'm a business coach, and let me tell you, I'm going to start adding that to my coaching.
Amazing.
Let's come up with an avatar for your business. I love this. So thank you for giving me a new tool.
Yeah, you're welcome. I think it's because it's also really intimidating, or if you don't have a lot of business experience, to try to figure out the right terminology can be really hard. or if you're just not a marketing person. And so this gives you a way that makes it more accessible. But you also see that as I'm talking about this, millennial businessman entity, it gives you a better sense of what colors to use and the font and the vocabulary to pull from.
He likes coffee. He's a millennial. He wears flannel. I already have the logo in my brain.
Exactly.
Probably has a beard and wears a hat.
So it makes your decisions easier. It makes it easier for you to, if you're going to contract or hire someone to, work on your website or your logo or whatever it is, they have a clearer understanding of the direction that you're aiming for, because that's also a really challenging thing with creative work. Is I think people have this impression that there's one right way of doing things, but with creative, there are a million targets that we could be aiming towards.
There can't possibly be one right way that works for everybody, because there's 7 billion people or 8 billion people on the planet. There's 8 billion right ways.
Right. And so when it comes to hiring somebody to be able to bring your vision to life, if you can help them know which target to aim towards, they're going to be able to do a much better job of delivering you something that aligns with your vision. If you're really vague, they might be aiming at that target over there, even though that you want this target right in front of you. And so this is a tool that can really make that much simpler.
And it's brilliant. So thank you. Thank you for sharing that. Haha, I'm stealing it. You know what is the thing that I love about women is that we freely give each other the tools that we need to make our lives better. I mean, if a mom has figured out a way to diaper a kid faster, they're going to show every other mom.
Yes.
Yeah. Or, hey, my kid loves it when I do this. And then, I made my own baby food. It was super simple to do. And of course I wanted to help any other mom who wanted to save money on baby food and tell them how to do it. Right. So women are so good at that. Okay. So we've talked about a lot of things that you probably didn't want to talk about. We talked about being married to your business partner and all sorts of fun stuff. But what do you want to talk about? What message do you want the audience to hear?
Oh my gosh, I feel like we've covered a lot of it. I think to kind of get ahead, because I think this is one of the questions that you're going to be asking as we wrap up this conversation. I think curiosity is an instrumental tool that we all have access to, and it helps in every single one of these topics that we've discussed today. So bringing curiosity to ask myself, why would my husband be saying, or, at the time, my boyfriend be saying these things? Like, what does he see that I'm not seeing? Or with, perfectionism, what's really causing me to avoid this thing that I'm avoiding? Or with branding, how can I find a way to communicate about something that's just like all the other competitors in a new, inventive, enticing way? So I think that curiosity doesn't get enough credit as a valuable tool, and it really is. It's something that is available to everybody, but it is a muscle that you have to train. And
if we didn't have curiosity, we wouldn't have the wheel.
Yeah.
And if we didn't have the wheel, we wouldn't have the wagon. If we didn't have the wagon, we wouldn't have the car. If we didn't have the car, we wouldn't have the airplane. I mean, just curiosity leads to questioning, leads to digging for the answer. And without curiosity, you become stagnant. And who wants that boring life?
Yeah. But it's amazing to me how many people I encounter who maybe they're scared of the answer that they'll find, so they don't ask the question, or they don't, get the help, or they don't do the thing. And I think that we all have that tendency there. Sometimes when I say, what's the cause of me avoiding this? It is because I'm scared of the answer that I'm going to hear. But even being aware of that then allows me to be able to, approach it with a gentler.
I'm going to try to make this statement without being political. But I have always believed, well, I guess for politicians, right? A politician should never ask a question unless they know the answer. And in the last couple of months, it's become very evident that some politicians think they know the answer and they don't. So asking, I don't want to get political, but you really shouldn't. You should do your research, and you should dig deep and find answers and figure out solutions, so that when you're positioned, so that you can be the person asking the question, you want a certain answer. Don't put yourself in a position where you're going to get the wrong answer or the correct answer that's not the one you want to hear.
Yeah, definitely.
That was really hard to do without saying not nasty things about people. So, okay. I know curiosity is a tool and it's a technique, but give me more. What is your favorite marketing tool, tip, or technique? And I've noticed that you are only on a few social media channels. So maybe tie that in together with your answer.
Well, I'm only on a few social media tools, not because I'm necessarily choosing not to be on all of them, but more because I think that's one of those areas that I'm still kind of dragging my feet on. Like, I know the value of it, but I think they scare me a little bit. And so I haven't, taken the plunge yet. Like, I started a YouTube channel a year ago, and I've made commitments multiple times that I'm going to be posting weekly. That has yet to come to fruition. I'll say once more, it is definitely something that I would like to commit to. But I guess it'll come when it will or when it won't. But as far as favorite tools, the tool that we spoke about of the brand identity, that's one of my favorites, because I think that it makes it so that even if you're not naturally a marketer, it really simplifies a lot of work that you would have to otherwise be doing. As far
I'm going to
as
start calling my company Greta. I'm just, Greta needs me to do this. And then people will be like, what? Greta's the name of my company. But I thought your company was Gratitude Geek. It is, but Greta's her name.
I love, as far as like an actual tool, I love ClickUp. ClickUp is like my favorite tool for keeping everything organized and collaborating with people. And it doesn't actually help do any of the marketing work, but it helps make sure that nothing falls through the cracks. And that gives me a lot of confidence and peace of mind that when something's there and it's assigned, it's going to be taken care of. And so I'm not working in a mess. I think that's really common in the creative field, that you're kind of like always in a state of chaos. And I don't do my best work when I'm in a state of chaos. So for me, having something that allows me to be organized and to delegate and to collaborate then creates space for me to be able to do my best work.
There are a lot of tools like ClickUp, and they're all similar but different. Yeah. And there are people who just connect with ClickUp, and there's people who connect with Trello, and there's people who connect with Awesome. And it's just a matter of the one that works best for you. Yeah. So it goes back to the perfectionism. Just because somebody says that this is the right tool for them doesn't mean that it's going to be the right tool for you. You just got to try them all and see what works. I tried all of those and none of them worked for me. I finally found one that works for me. It's HoneyBook, which isn't anything at all like ClickUp and Trello, which are more of these boards and spreadsheets. HoneyBook just helps me keep track of my clients and my podcast guests, which is all I needed. That's all I needed Trello to do for me. Yeah.
So what I like about ClickUp, and I've heard great things about HoneyBook, we were already too down the rabbit hole with some other things that it just, if I was maybe building our business from scratch, I would have chosen different tools and allowed for something like that. But we were already committed to some other things that it would have been too much of an overhaul to use a tool like that. But what I like about ClickUp is there's also a lot of customization. So if you're more of a Kanban board, like how Trello shows up in those boards, if that's how you like to see things, you can look at your tasks that way. If I'm more of a calendar person, I can look at my tasks that way. If I'm more of a spreadsheet person. And so within my team, everybody can choose to look at it in ways that's most natural for them. So I feel like the initial sort of learning curve is pretty steep, and it's not the most user-friendly right out of the gate. But I tested all of the tools that I could, and this seemed to work the best for us. And also with Zapier or Make, you can integrate it with pretty much any other tool that you need. And so it's allowed us to also automate a lot of parts of our work to make things even more seamless. So I'm a big fan of it.
Cool. Very cool. All right. This is your moment of gratitude. For whom or what are you most grateful?
That's such a hard question. Like one person.
Doesn't have to be one person.
I mean, my family, which I'm going to say includes that dog over there, Pickle, and my husband, Aries, and my parents. All of them just make a wonderful support network that provides me whatever kind of support I need. So if I need somebody to listen, I have the listening. If I need somebody to push me or to, question if I'm really seeing things in the right way, I have that. If I just need a cuddle, I have that. So I feel incredibly lucky for these beings that are in my life. Yeah.
Thanks for tuning in to Gratitude Geek, where we help DIY marketers attract raving fans and repeat buyers. Don't forget to check out the show notes at gratitudegeek.com for links to all the resources mentioned in this episode. If you enjoyed it, please leave a review on your favorite podcast platform. Our theme music is by Rev Rock and Solely. I'm Kandas Rodarte, reminding you that gratitude is like manure. It's just a pile of poo until you spread it around. Stay groovy, my friends.
Stay groovy, my friends.
I know we can make it.